Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. Got Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon on the show today per usual. Gang is all together. We got two hearty topics today that I'm looking forward to discussing. We've got a movie and we obviously got a little bit of a news piece today. We were going to talk about Quiet on Set, episode 5. But a little note on that. Catherine and I watched it yesterday, and I forgot. It's funny. I'm the one who kind of spearheads the show. I forgot that it premiered on Friday, or on Sunday. Excuse me. It premiered on Sunday on HBO Max, and then it just randomly dawned on me Tuesday morning. I want to say that oh yeah, the new Quiet on Set dropped, and then I thought the fact that it wasn't trending on Twitter probably tells me there wasn't any breakthrough revelations, because that thing had a lot for a couple weeks and still kind of is in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
But I was the fact that Drake Bell or the show didn't really trend, and I didn't see anything new or even hear other DJs on my stations talk about it at work or anything. I was maybe there really isn't much, and there truthfully isn't. There's basically what it is. Kind of give a brief synopsis here because I know you two haven't seen it yet. Basically what it is it's sort of it starts with a bunch of news clippings and from CNN and stuff, where it's the world is reacting to the bombshells revealed in the Quiet on Set documentary. So it brings
a little self-relating.
Yes, a little bit, yes. And then it's I think her name is Soledad O'Brien. It's kind of hard to forget that name, but I think her name is Soledad O'Brien. And she's it's almost like a 2020 sort of setup where she's I'm Soledad O'Brien. We're sitting down with Drake Bell, his first interview since the documentary was released. And he kind of just goes over some things. He touches a little bit on Josh Peck, but not really a 45-second, almost kind of dismissive thing. Then they interviewed Brian Hearn and Giovanni Samuels, the two African-American cast members of all that. They kind of react to Dan Schneider's apology video. The most interesting part of the documentary, they do speak to an All That cast member. While nothing happened to him, he does mention how Brian Peck asked him one time if he knew what blue balls were on set. The other, as 2/3 of us are wearing blue, I just noticed. And the only, it's not even revelatory, but it's more really. Do you guys remember how in Dan Schneider's apology video, he says he owes a lot of people an apology?
Yeah.
Well, I thought, this bastard could make something of a name or something of a positive headline for himself if he were to call the people in this thing. And maybe Alexa Nichols comes out and says I talked to Dan Schneider or something like that. Honestly, I would never be in his shoes because I think I'm a decent human being, but I would think that would have been my first move after the documentary came out, would be to call some people, was to comb through my Rolodex. Well, Giovanni Samuels, though, she says that Dan Schneider did call her before the documentary came out and asked if he would give her a positive quote.
Oh my God.
And Soledad O'Brien's taken aback. She's did he know you were in the documentary? And she said, yeah, he knew. And he was looking to see if I give a positive quote. And I told him, I was terrified of you. You had the ability to make or break careers, and you went on these you had such a very volatile temper on set. She's I was in fear of you. So I don't think I don't think she got he got a positive quote out of her, quite frankly. But that's your brief recap of episode 5. It really is. It's not necessary. It's not really necessary. It isn't.
It kind of reminds me of Tiger King's recap episode, or just its bonus episode that came out during the pandemic, where they just had the guy that made Community, Joel. God, I can't remember the guy's name, but he basically hosted like a Zoom call with the actual people of that were interviewed, and it was just a recap of like what everybody already knew from the actual show.
Right. Like it has a very how do I want to say it? Like a Talking Dead sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a
like
good way to
like a
put it,
Talking Dead sort of style to it. Like
yeah.
it's not necessary. It's
There's
not
something I haven't
bad.
heard of in a while.
I know, right? It's not bad. It's just it's not great and it's not really necessary. And they kind of built it up like it was going to be like somebody maybe who hasn't spoken yet. And it really was truthfully the one cast member, I can't remember his name. It's a gentleman from All That. But he was only on for like the first 2 seasons before they fired him. And he says they never gave really a reason why he was fired. And then he brings up that brief Brian Peck anecdote, and that's about it for that. But it's not a really crucial watch by any means. And so that's why I thought, let's talk the Maxine trailer because that's getting a lot of buzz. And frankly, it's a little bit, a little bit more positive. And the X series, as it's known, has been a big staple on this show too. So I kind of want to keep that going because I am fucking jacked for this Maxine movie for damn sure. I'm hoping my theater gets a poster because I'm going to try to flex my connections and get that poster from them after the movie airs. But at any rate, though, how are you gentlemen doing? Joe, start with you, repping Wheaton on that blue shirt of yours.
Yeah, repping Wheaton. Yeah, my old work. Glad it's my old work too, because I can tell you what, if I had to be there for summer events while I was dealing with school and everything, I would have never survived. That is for sure. I probably would have been like, one of these has to go, work or school. But other than that, no, I'm doing pretty good. I am exactly 1 month away from finishing this damn degree. In exactly 1 month, as long as everything goes good and I don't mess this up, I will be walking on stage and grabbing a degree and shaking everybody's hand saying, thank you, I will never do this again. Thank you, I will never do this again. Thank you, I will never do this again. And tell
You know what would help, Joe, with that?
What's up?
If you say a slur tonight on air, just say the worst possible thing while you're so close to the finish line.
You know, that is a terrible idea. But
Joe, I'm very happy for you. I am so happy for you, and I'm going to be over the moon once you graduate.
Thank you. Yeah, no,
because you will graduate very soon.
I hope so. I hope I don't blow this at the finish line. Not that
no, you won't.
Not that there's a chance. Like, I'm doing great in all my classes. My goal, as long as I don't mess this up with these last 2 classes, is to hear some cum laude, like, Joseph Viso or whatever the hell they say for having honors like the whole way through, like a program and everything. I'm really hoping that's the case here. But yeah, I'm almost done. I can't wait for it. These next few weeks are going to be a little bit hellish for me because a lot of the stuff I have to do for school is going to take place at night, which sucks because it's like I go to work and then I come home and then for about 2 hours I'm just going to sit there going, all right, well, I guess I can shower and maybe watch something, and then I have to be in school for like an hour. And then 8 o'clock I'm done, or 8:30. Luckily it doesn't collide with Sleepless. It's just Monday and Tuesday night. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights for these next few weeks, I'm gonna be like, damn man, I can't wait for this to be done. I'm gonna be a little bit tired, but at least with Wednesday nights we get to talk about movies like the one we're gonna talk about tonight. I'm excited to talk about this one here. What you guys thought about it. I'm excited to talk about that Maxine trailer too, and I am especially excited for, honestly, the next few movies that we're reviewing, especially next week with Civil War. I'm so looking forward to that movie. But Dom, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm wearing blue here. I'm repping the color blue. It's my favorite color. That's it. No, I'm doing all right. I am trying to exercise consistently at home, just pure calisthenics.
I just got back on my workout program.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Get them gains.
Thank you. You as well, sir.
And for me, it's just endurance. Like, I could go to the gym. I have not stepped into a single gym once this whole endeavor, like the past like 2/3 of a year now, because I said to myself, let me build up a discipline first, not a regimen, because my schedule is way too hectic for that because I work in events. So just saying, hey, this is my Saturday. Nope, got to work. I got to go in at like 8 in the morning on Saturday. So it trying to be okay. If I can do 4 times a week and at least one run, one 30 to 40 minute run, walk jog, I should say, walk jog. Um, then I'll see where I am next year. Like really slow rolling it,
Yeah.
because I would rather just take crawls forward than take leaps forward and then get sucked backwards like 5 paces. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So that's my philosophy. Just slowly get better and don't go back. Uh, you know, uh, unless I lose my leg or something. But that's the risk we take going outside as gamers. So yeah,
Good stuff. I like it. Man, it's
thank you.
shocking. You're almost done in a month too, Joe, at school.
Yeah, I know, man. You're telling me.
We got to throw some kind of sleepless party. Maybe that's the week we do our top 10 topics that have left us sleepless and that have kept the show going all this time. I wonder if that's the time for a clip show.
Maybe, yeah. We'll see.
I
Yeah.
wonder because that's still been festering in my head. Real quick, we're not going to talk Maxine until the latter half of the show, but I have to mention this, okay? Because for years I've wondered, and it's never been on his Wikipedia page until fairly recently, I got to say. I've always wondered what Ty West's real name is because it's just T.I. West. And it's on Wikipedia now, and you're never going to believe the citation. Don't look it up. Don't ruin it for yourself. His real name is Timon C. West.
Oh,
Oh.
His real name is Timon. Timon. So I'm assuming it's Timon.
that is a
Well,
real name.
well, you know what's funny? And it's not really funny. It's kind of dark. So I see there's a citation next to the name on Wikipedia. So I went over and I'm like, what is it? It says grandmother's obituary.
Oh,
That's where they got his real name from. Was his grandmother's Violet A. West Stout.
it's a little
Jesus.
sad.
Man, somebody who's got more time on their hands
Uh,
than me found
I was gonna
that.
say, yeah. Well, who's the film nerd that went like, guys, I got it. Look. And
Is
What's
this
your
gra-
source? Oh,
Because I hovered my mouse over after I got done talking just now, and I hovered over, and I'm like, and I looked at the source, and I'm like, the fuck, legacy.com? Like, I
Fun
see
fact.
obituary. I'm like,
my dad used to work for Legacy.
did he really?
He did. He worked there for decades, and he was like, "Yeah, this will never go out of business. So long as people die, we're good, and as long as we don't, fumble the bag, then we are all right." And then but then he left Legacy because they got bought out, and then they kind of drove it into the ground. So
I did not know that.
at least
Oh, wow.
internally, I don't know.
Now, that's a recession-proof industry if there ever was one.
For
Death
real.
is a capital B business. Anyway, we are talking about Monkey Man today, Dev Patel's directorial debut. That is a mouthful right off the bat. First things first, I like Dev Patel quite a bit. Slumdog Millionaire Lion, which is very underrated, except, for a movie that garnered a lot of Academy Awards. Very underrated movie. You also have The Green Knight, which is probably my favorite that he's done. I even liked him in Chappie. I know Chappie gets relentlessly shit on, like even to this day, but I always liked him in that too. He's been in a bunch of really good movies too. He hasn't done as much as you think though. And there's even a few of his that I haven't seen, like The Personal History of David Copperfield is one of them. There's quite a few that I haven't seen by him, but he's always an actor I've enjoyed seeing when he does turn up. He's very young. He's only like 33 years old, I want to say. So this is his first movie, and I just want to start by saying, man, I didn't realize until recently before seeing this movie because I'd heard about it. I heard he was making it like right around when COVID started. This thing, we are lucky that this thing got a release of any kind. This thing went through hell and back to get made. Just a brief overview of what happened. The movie went into production shortly before COVID and was supposed to be filmed in like February of 2020, somewhere around there in India. But India was one of the first countries hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic. So then Patel moved the filming location to Indonesia. And then what happened was like during the filming of the first fight sequence, very early on in the production, he broke his hand.
Oh,
And so that sidelined him for a couple of months for recovery. In the meantime, then Netflix, which bought the rights for the movie for $30 million, was like quietly shopping it around once they saw the finished product because they thought it was going to alienate like Indian subscribers. And it wasn't what they bargained for, wasn't what they thought it would be. It was almost going to get canceled because Netflix wasn't keen on selling the rights. Then the Hail Mary play for Patel was Jordan Peele, was contacting Jordan Peele, and Peele got the movie from Netflix for, I think, like a sunk cost, like $10 million,
Yeah.
and agreed with Patel. He said, we're going to put it in theaters. And the way Patel said it, he's like, it was like Peele took this thing that was just inches away from the garbage heap and put it on the mantle. And I have to give credit to, you know what I mean, to that, because we almost had to watch this thing on streaming. Like, and this movie does have a lot going for it visually, where it does look as grimy and as ugly as it looks at times. This is also a movie that's really meant to be seen in theaters. All that being said, I really hate to, I almost prefaced the history of this movie to get to the point that I did not care for it, that I did not really enjoy this movie.
I can see that.
I really did not enjoy this movie. I wonder what you guys are going to say, because I am in the very vast minority of this movie. This movie is already one of the highest rated movies of the year. And I feel like I'm missing something. I really do. I have not seen, this might be my tell here, but I have not seen any of the John Wick movies. That's a franchise I've never truly cared to watch.
I've only seen the first, but I'm surprised you haven't seen a single one.
I haven't seen a single one. I've only seen one of the Raid movies too. That was about all I could take of that.
I mean, did you watch the first one?
The Raid Redemption, yes.
Oh, so the second one.
No, that's the
The
first.
first one is just The Raid. The second one is Redemption.
Okay, yes, I saw the first one then, the one that came out in 2012.
Yeah, okay.
That's I thought the first Raid had a subtitle too. My bad,
Yeah.
But
it's the one where they have the raid. I'm kidding.
Yes, indeed. No, that damn thing was called The Raid Redemption.
What? Hold on.
Yeah,
Stop.
yeah.
Stop.
The name of the film was
Shut
changed to The Raid Redemption for the United States.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then the Raid 2 is just that. It's only that.
guys, America is cringe.
The Raid 2 is known as the Raid Retaliation. I thought I was right.
Go to hell.
I thought I was right.
Not you. Ugh.
I thought it was the Raid Redemption. Anyway, in America at least. But anyway, though, yeah, Patel went to hell and back to get this thing made. So it's a minor miracle that this thing even sees the light of day. But I feel like this thing gets crushed under the weight of its lofty yet underdeveloped ideas. And the action is only sporadically satisfying. That's my big takeaway. I'm really more curious to hear what you guys have to say. We'll start with you, Joe.
Jeez. You know what? Hold on. Let me get a little.
I was getting a mask.
He's cooking.
Let Joe cook over here.
Oh, he's really getting it.
His background's my reaction right now.
All right. So we
Whoa.
got John Wick, John Wick 2, John Wick 3, John Wick 4.
Physical Media King.
Physical Media King, yes. I really love this movie. I had a great time with this movie, and I totally get what you mean, Steve. Because the criticism I do have of this movie is that I do feel like Dev Patel was throwing a lot all at once, and most of it I think sticks the landing. There's something there's a surprising. I'm not gonna give it away because I actually thought it was kind of cool. It wasn't shown in any of the promos, but there's a surprising social commentary here. I probably should have expected that, knowing that Jordan Peele was producing this. I should have been like, oh, okay, yeah, that's probably gonna be something. I love the action. I do agree that some of it, though, is a little camera shaky, especially the wrestling fights. Those were disappointing when, in the trailer, they look so badass. But, when you actually watch the movie, I would say the most sloppiest fighting in this movie for me were the wrestling matches. It's the camera's moving way too fast. It's going up way too close. But then the stuff where, he's taking down people with, knives or glass bottles and stuff. He'll like set the camera down so you could see it and do a cool takedown. And it's just like, man, why can't you do the same with these wrestling action sequences? There's a lot that he's throwing here, and like I said, most of it sticks, some of it doesn't. But for the most part, I had a blast throughout this ride, and for it to be under 2 hours as well is like another like amendment, because like we get a lot of long action movies sometimes where they overstay their welcome because they're just like, okay, we're gonna do a bigger action sequence, and now we're gonna do a bigger action sequence. There's really only 2 action sequences in this movie. One being like at the end of the first act, and then one being the climax. I did say there's these wrestling fights. They're not like big action sequences, but like they're, compared to the other ones, like they're not like spectacle ones. I actually really enjoyed that. Like, we had those just 2 action scenes, and before you know it, the movie was just moving along, and I was like, oh, we're at the climax finally. Like, there we go. This was just a genuine surprise, because I mean, like, the trailers had me hyped, but I still didn't know what to expect from the movie. And to get what we got with nationalist commentary, religious commentary, Indian like Hinduism, and Muslim like lore to their religion, like a
Lore.
ton of stuff. Lore, yeah, sorry.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I just find it funny. In my mind, I reserve lore for like
nerd shit,
like Warhammer. Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I mean, no, you are correct. You are correct. I'm not. Yeah.
Like, so much. It's just like, damn, man. Maybe you could have utilized more time. Maybe you didn't. But for the most part, I'm just gonna. I'll pass it off to Dom here. It is a fun ride from beginning to end. There's some characters, like there's a character that shows up in this movie, and I'll get into this more later. That like she shows up, and you think she's gonna be a bigger character because they have like her and Dev Patel, not intimate moments, but they have like moments of like sharing like kind of like this traumatic like past, and you're like, oh, let's go into that further. And she doesn't basically pop back up until the last 5 minutes of the movie. And it's like, oh, okay, I thought we were gonna do more with that character, but all right. It's a bit sloppy in places, but for a debut, especially writing, story, producing, directing, and leading the movie, this man, I gotta admit, like, he did a solid job.
Yeah, I always, in my mind, I know he's been doing way more stuff since then, and he's freaking yoked. But like in my mind, he's still, Dev Patel from The Boy, the boyish charm of Slumdog Millionaire,
Yeah.
and even The Newsroom. I
Yeah.
have a weakness for The Newsroom, even though it's very problematic in these days. But regardless, yeah, this is a very straightforward movie. It's more style than substance, but it's not completely devoid of substance. But it is very much a revenge story. It is very much a a triumph over trauma story. You know, so much, a lot of suffering, a lot of Dev Patel screaming and struggling, sweating, groaning. I would have loved to have seen the ADR sessions. It's probably like 5 hour long ADR sessions, which is the thing where an actor is literally just in a studio and they're just going, huh, which is one of my favorite things. Just watch behind the scenes videos of ADR, and they are just strangely fascinating. But regardless, yeah, man, it's very straightforward, and I'm struggling, and I was struggling going into this movie to have like a final say on it, and both of y'all did not do me any favors. God damn you! But no, I think for me, it's the fact that it feels like a freshman effort, but a very, very impressive one. And again, coming from someone who has never done anything remotely film related in their life beyond talking about it. But and it's very easy to say, oh, it's the shaky cam. I don't like, I'm not one of those people who reject shaky cam outright. One of my go-to examples of shaky cam that were extremely effective is Saving Private Ryan. If you look at that, there's a shit ton of shaky cam, but it's very concerted. It's really the cutting and the intensity of it, and it's very effective, and it's so disciplined that that is my go-to example for like a kind of a counter for anyone who completely dismisses the technique. But yeah, you could say going into the weeds, it's a little too much shaky cam. It's a little too much fighting. It's a little too on the nose, et cetera, with its heroes and villains. I'm okay with that because if you go and going, it's extremely straightforward. It's extremely, um, you know, a triumph over evil without it being too. It takes itself very seriously, which I appreciate this needs to be a very serious story because this shit in India, because this is a I'm not gonna say a very political movie, but it cannot be completely devoid of it.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm struggling to say if like, oh, could it use more of that politics, or it's like, well, do we want to get bogged down in the if you want to talk about like here, America is extremely simple compared to the shit in India, which is a continent, a subcontinent of like 1.5 billion people. Um, I always say that the statistic that always blows me away is that the United States is the third most populous country in the world. But if you add another billion to it, it will still be the third most populous country in the world because of China and India. And just the fact that India and China exist as super countries, just in terms of the population, is a miracle in and of itself, and probably ripe with corruption and depression. But we will, but and this country does touch into that, and I very much appreciate that. And I will take a moment after our break, after maybe later on. The one big thing that I super appreciated about it, which I think you already know what I'm alluding to, but yeah, it's very straightforward, and it's almost difficult for me to come up with to really go into it too much. It's it's engaging,
Yeah.
and the fight scenes are disciplined. The best fight scenes are very very disciplined and impressive, and I'm kind of happy for it. That's my overall vibe here. Is that I'm happy for it.
I
Yeah.
hate reviewing movies like this. Like
Yeah.
because it's like as much as I love these, goddamn, these green screens, the John Wick movies. As much as I love these movies, it's like, oh, hey man, can you write like a 2-page review on it? I really couldn't, because like it's just like it just does action very well.
They're experiential movies.
Yeah,
they're very much experiential. You have to watch
yeah.
them.
And like Dom, you even said
Hardcore
it.
Henry is like the you remember Hardcore Henry if
Yeah.
you ever
Oh,
saw that
yeah.
one?
I couldn't
That's
im-
like that's like the maximum that.
I
you know?
couldn't imagine trying to write a review for Hardcore Henry, because it's just like
I
I would
did.
just put it on a paper. Steve, more credit to you, because I don't know how you do it. I would just put on a paper. You just got to see this
I
shit
agree.
for yourself. Like,
I agree, but here's the thing with Hardcore Henry again is the extreme.
yeah.
But even with John Wick too, John Wick as well, the whole series, it's
More
there's enough style there, and even a little more substance that we could probably spend a whole thing talking about at least the first movie, because I've only seen the first movie.
And with the later
But-
movies, you even have like world building. You can get into like, oh, I really appreciate what
Yeah,
they're
okay.
doing with this world and everything. With Monkey Man, you really don't have that, and it reminded me so much of John Wick Chapter 1 in that sense, where it's just like, hey, it's a fun action movie. It's a simple revenge story. It's got a lot of style to it. It does some cool visual storytelling too.
John Wick is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, would you call Monkey Man fun?
With its action, yeah. I mean, it is a very serious movie, and like it does bring up some heavy topics that I think, like, with an action movie, it's like it's cool to see them like explore themes like this. It's also cool that like we get an American movie that is actually set in India with a ton of Indian actors. And then they're speaking like those scenes where they go on for a long period of time. They're speaking in their native tongue. And they go into their religion. Like, it's like, man, we don't typically see this in too many American movies. And like, you could scream woke at me and shit, like, all you want when it comes to stuff
It's
like
not
that.
even that quote unquote.
I know,
woke.
but like,
it's basic like underdog story. It's Slumdog Millionaire, bro, but with punching.
like people could say that all they want, like, oh, they're giving people of color. Like, I don't know, man. Like, when I see the woke,
yeah, because it's in India, motherfucker.
Yeah, woke is tossed around so much today that I just don't even know what it means anymore to
It's
those
meaningless.
people. Like it really is a meaningless word. But it's just like, it's cool to see that, because it's not a common setting for action movies.
No, it's not.
It kind of gives a cool backdrop to it. It really gives like some like artistic flair to some of these scenes too, where Patel's like exploring like the paintings and stuff, the villages. Like, one of my favorite scenes in this movie was like when they steal someone's purse, and it's just everybody running around the street passing the bag off to one another, and you're just seeing like how the slums of India are, and it's just quick cuts of that, and how like this whole world is, and even just like not slow cuts, but quick cuts of like when he's escaping the police, and like you're seeing people just sleeping on the street. It really paints a picture of like how populated that world is, and how like underdeveloped it is for some people.
The last time I think we were in India, at least for a majority of the movie, was I think what's that? Extraction? Is
Yeah.
that the movie?
I think so, yeah.
It was directed by a stuntman, and I like that movie as an action film. I like Monkey Man more as like a statement,
Yeah.
as an actual like cohesive story. Because I don't remember the names of the characters in Extraction. I don't. The only thing I remember is the stunts and the continuous scene.
Yeah, that's
exactly
awesome.
Which is fine. That's exactly what that movie was meant to do. Whereas Monkey Man, it's actually saying something. There is an actual very bare bones, very straightforward but concerted story that Dev Patel wanted to deliver, and he does it. He does it very effectively, in this sense, not perfectly but very effectively.
Yeah.
Now, see, I think this movie has a lot of the hallmarks of a director, and this happens quite a bit. We're getting a lot of movies directed by actors in this day and age now too, like Dave Franco, Olivia Wilde, and it was kind of even like it reminded me of
Jordan
Don't Worry,
Peele.
Jordan Peele, even like it reminded me of Don't Worry, Darling in this sense, like, but this doesn't apply to Olivia Wilde as much as it does Dev Patel though, but you get this vibe here is that like. And I might even do this too if I was a filmmaker, but like Dev Patel kind of operates like he's never going to be able to direct a movie again here.
Huh.
Like he operates like he's never going to get this opportunity again. And I mean, hell, he almost didn't get this opportunity, let's be frank, but that's what I think leads to a lot of this the sort of these like muddled outlines of commentary that suggest the collection of Patel's beliefs and opinions on the current state of India. But I don't think they can be adequately summarized with one movie, especially a movie that can get this sloppy at times too, with both its videography and both its editing. I think that there's a lot in this movie, especially because I mean it's critiquing a lot of this movie critiques sort of the Prime Minister of India's policies. Modi is his name. Critiques a lot of his policies and how like present day India is now like this cesspool where like individual rights are handicapped completely. And that's a big part of this movie too. But I also think it doesn't really help that there's a true deficit of reliable characters in this movie, or not even reliable characters, but characters that we get to know outside of Patel's kid. His character's name is Kid. There's not really anybody else. There's brief suggestions that Duliapala, that's her last name. Sopita Duliapala is, I think, how you say her name. She plays a prostitute in this movie, and at the beginning you think that she might be sort of this reoccurring character, but she's more of like this extended cameo presence in his life.
Yeah.
That like understands what he's trying to do, but sort of just recites a couple poetic lines and then she's gone for the next 30 minutes and doesn't really have any, tangibility on the plot. So I think that the movie, in my opinion, I think it suffers from the fact that I don't think it quite knows exactly. I think Patel knows a lot about, the extent of what he wanted this movie to say. I don't think it really comes clear by the time the credits roll, though. I think it's about a lot more than the movie can develop. Yeah. And I also think that there's a lack of characters here. And Kid's a great character. Patel's a great actor, and he plays a really good character here.
He was the character that was keeping me motivated to like stay with the movie, because it's just like
he's the only character to give you any kind of motivation.
Like
to stick with it.
Learning his backstory and just like kind of like why does his hands look the way they do and everything, and when you uncover that, it's like, oh, okay, all right. It was actually interesting to see play out, even though I did think, like, another thing, I was like, they keep cutting back to these flashbacks a little bit too much throughout this movie, when it's like, we could have done that one big flashback where it plays out the whole time.
It's true.
I think it would have been as effective than the times actually more effective than the times we just kept cutting back to it and then being like, ooh, what happened? Like,
that first glimpse of the flashback in like the first 5 minutes, you kind of already know what happened there.
Yeah.
I have the perfect thing to take us back into the show after the break here. it's funny because Jordan Peele's name's obviously connected to this. He should have done what Jordan Peele did for Nope. And I'll explain more after the break.
Okay.
Oh,
I'll
boy.
leave you guys with that. That's what we call a tease in this business. Patel should have done what Jordan Peele did for Nope, and what is probably the best, most memorable scene from the movie Nope, in my opinion. We'll get back to that in a few minutes over here. We're going to take our Zoom sponsored intermission for this episode of Sleepless with Steve. I knew this was going to be a divisive review. I knew I was going to be like Monkey Man in the corner of the ring by myself on this one. I already knew.
Everybody here has had Dom was on his own for Ghostbusters. I was mostly on my own for Kong, and now Steve's on his own for Monkey Man.
Something about monkeys and apes in movies. I don't know what it is. We will get back here. We will get back to Sleepless with Steve here in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube, back after our Zoom sponsored intermission. Back and better than ever. Back from our Zoom sponsored intermission. It's Sleepless with Steve. We're live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. We're talking Monkey Man Dev Patel's the directorial debut, currently in theaters right now. So I teased this going into the break. I said that there is definitely there's one thing that Joe said that kind of triggered this in my mind. I didn't even write this in my review at stevepulaski.com, but I did think of it when you brought it up. And it was like one of the things that I did talk about in my review was I said I thought the persistent stylized flashbacks really sort of undercut the impact of the action sequences. It results
I
in the
think so
movie
too.
not getting a lot of narrative momentum at certain times. It
Yes.
keeps going back, it keeps backtracking, and I think that's part of what took me out of it was sort of the staccato rhythm that we never stayed in one setting long enough without
Yeah.
some kind of interruption, be it a character or be it, you know, a flashback to kid's younger self growing up with his mother and the property developers encroaching on his land and his parents' mom's land.
It's one of these movies. It's so weird where I felt the pacing was good. Like I wasn't ever bored. I was always like, this movie's moving along, but it's like it feels like disjointed at points where it's just like, okay, like we're taking a step into his past again. Okay, now we're back in the present. Okay, we're taking a step back into his. Okay, now we're back in the present. There's a movie. I don't know if you guys remember this. Salt with Angelina Jolie.
Yep.
Oh,
action
yes.
movie.
Okay.
Action movie where they constantly cut back to her past life, and it's dealing with. And the thing is, it's killing the momentum of that plot, I think. And not that Monkey Man has this, but like Salt deals with like political thriller because it's dealing with this whole thing is she a secret Russian KGB agent or whatever the hell it was in that movie. And throughout that movie, whenever the narrative is kind of pushing forward with that, it jumps back to like the 80s or 90s of her past where it's like, oh man, was she part of the KGB? It's like, well, we're trying to uncover that in the present. Why don't we just let it fucking play out like for a few minutes, and then like, you know, like we can go to the past like at very like important times or just one moment to really play things out like a twist or something. And Monkey Man kind of has that. Sorry, Steve. Monkey Man kind of has that where it's like the narrative's playing out. I'm interested to know like, why does this guy want to get revenge on these people? What's happening? And it's like we keep cutting back away from it. It's like, dude, honestly, just play the flashback out and then have the rest of the movie play out. It will actually have me more engaged, and I probably would have given it. Honestly, I would have been probably loving this movie even more. I know I say I love this movie, and I do, but I would have been like almost maybe 4 stars here if the movie was that much stronger with its narrative, because it would have given me at least like I think it would have been tighter and not felt disjointed. Go on, Steve. Sorry.
Consider Jordan Peele's movie Nope for a second. One of the best sequences in the movie Nope is a flashback. It's also one of the most impacting scenes of that whole movie. It's the flashback to the set, to the sitcom set, where Jupe, who's an adult version played by Steven Yeun,
God, that still gives me chills.
the set on or the sitcom set scene with the chimpanzee who then goes off and attacks the humans after the balloons pop.
Yeah.
Imagine if that, because what is it, like a 6-minute sequence, maybe less, maybe, you know, somewhere around there. Much of it, like a minute of it, is spent with the younger version of Jupe hiding underneath the table, avoiding the chimpanzee, and then them making eye contact. Imagine that the impact of that scene if it had been split into 3 parts scattered around that movie. It would not have had the same effect.
Yeah.
Now, if you consider the flashback that Monkey Man keeps going back to was kid's childhood with his mother and the property developer and the corrupt police force joining together to rid them of their land, and then the inexplicable tragedy that occurs, which is fucking devastating. That would have had a much greater impact if we had just let the whole thing play out maybe a half an hour into the movie or so. Let the whole thing play out. Give it 10 minutes. Give it 10 minutes because it could have chronicled everything from like what's tackled in the very beginning. It could have really tackled I was trying to look up the name of the book that keeps getting referenced in there, Hanuman. It could have chronicled everything in like an economized period of time. But what it doesn't do, it pays for the sins of that throughout the movie by having that flashback repeatedly have to cycle back and pick up where it left off. It disrupts the momentum of a movie, which is one of the critical elements, I think, of any kind of action movie. A stylized one like this is the momentum building to the fight sequences, which I did not dislike, but I do think they're really interrupted by the abundance of flashbacks and other digressions here.
Yeah.
Little nitpick of mine. As much as I did love the action movies, I mean not action movie, the action sequences in this movie, um, I really because it's so weird because it's like he talked about like Dev Patel talked about like yeah like obviously in the movie like it was kind of stylized after the John Wick action movies and everything. Or he even took inspiration from Bruce Lee action movies and like some of the Bollywood action movies he grew up with.
Oh wow.
I can't really refer to the Bollywood movies, but I can refer to the John Wick movies and the Bruce Lee movies. And the thing about those two movies is, whenever Bruce Lee or Keanu Reeves got punched, shot throughout that movie, you saw it on his face in terms of blood, cuts, bruises, stuff like that. There's moments in this movie Dev Patel gets the crap being out of him. But because he's wearing that monkey mask, the minute he takes it off clean, with smooth skin, nothing. I'm just like, oh, come on, man. Like, like, I know, again, it's a rookie mistake probably on his first go-around as a director, but it was just a little nitpick of mine that was, like, constantly bothering me where it's like, man, throughout all these action scenes where he's getting punched in the face hard, he walks away no bruises whatsoever. Maybe a little cut on his lip, and that's about it.
Yeah, does he?
He's got his.
Has he never had
hair.
a black eye?
He's got his tousled hair and everything like that.
Like damn,
I did
mean,
forget
like him playing Zuko from the last Avatar. He at least has like that burn mark on his face and everything.
I did forget to mention this in the very beginning monologue, talking about the checkered history of this thing. He broke his hand during the first action sequence. I mentioned that, and that sidelined filming for a few weeks. At the wrap party for the movie, for the whole cast and crew, at least the crew, I think maybe the cast, he had shirts made with a picture of the X-ray of his broken hand.
Huh.
That's awesome.
So I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's I do love Dev Patel. I do not take any joy out of really talking down and being disappointed by his debut.
He also broke 2 toes and he got an eye infection while filming this.
Wow.
I didn't know about the eye infection either.
Yeah.
Damn, like it makes you feel even worse almost for criticizing it. But the one thing I would like to say about the fight sequences too is that I think part of like putting the monkey man the whole like underground fighting thing in there is to show that like he can fight.
Yeah.
Like he can fight. He's not just this inexplicable, relatively scrawny dude with a piss poor upbringing that can go, fisticuffs with people. So I think that boxing ring element was more of a device to justify his kid character. But I will say is that in the beginning of the movie, when he does have like real hand-to-hand combat in the real world, he's sloppy. If you notice in the beginning of the movie, he's very
that
sloppy.
first action scene where he has to like run and everything.
And where he's doing more defense than offense when it comes to his fighting. And I like that because I'm like, he's not just this inexplicable superhero. That was one touch I did like. And then there's the one scene, which I feel like nobody's really mentioning on like, I've read quite a few Letterboxd reviews because I feel like a nut being the only one who doesn't like this movie, or seemingly the only one who gave it like a lower score. But nobody's mentioning the other scene too, that because it's not really funny, but it's more like, okay, he tried to do that. Is when he tries to jump through that glass window and then gets bounced back.
Yeah.
And he like scoffs it off. Like I there's touches here that I do appreciate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of touches here that I do appreciate. I just think it doesn't coalesce into a movie that's clear enough in its messaging nor cogent enough in its plotting. So I called it in my review. It sounds harsh, but I called it in my review an ambitious failure because I think Patel has good acumen for this. I hope this isn't the only thing he directs, but I don't know how quick he's going to jump back in the saddle too after all the problems to get this thing made to begin with. But I would like to see more from him from a director's point of view, even if I didn't love this movie.
I'll just disagree in that one thing you said about not clear enough in its messaging. I think it's very clear. I think it wears its heart and politics on its sleeve. If that is that what you're talking about, Steve, or are you talking about maybe referencing something different? Because the thing I absolutely resonate that what you said resonated with me is the pacing. Both of you have said it. It's yeah, the pacing. It's got momentum, but it's sloppy and disjointed. I that is something you feel even if you don't immediately recognize it. But for me, and circling back to what I alluded to earlier, for me, what I did very much appreciate is that it wears its heart on its sleeve, and for the right reasons and in the right direction. In that, yeah, this is it's a almost too universal at times, but very clear message of yeah, this is the underdog.
Yeah.
This is whoever it is in society, black people, indigenous people, or in this case, the trans community, the Haraj, I'm getting that wrong, community. That I think they even did some cuts in the film, very quick cuts of like real world footage of this community getting assaulted and then in many cases dying. And there's millions of them in India, which is small for I guess for a minority in India, but still there are millions of these people that of these folks who've been just abused, and you can read on the news all about it. And for them to have their kind of a quick moment in the sun with with where the cavalry has arrived, I personally enjoyed, whether you thought it was maybe a little too cheap, a little too
Nah,
like on the
dude, man,
nose or
when they
whatever.
played metal
For
music
me,
to that,
I eat that shit up. I gobble that shit up. Yeah, man.
When they started playing metal music, I'm like, look, this is out of the world, like crazy, but I'm with it.
Right.
No, I'm glad you said it and everything, because it's just like I was even talking to some friends about it, because it was like the most surprising thing that came out of the movie for me was like that little part of it there, like learning that. Like and having the film expose like that side of the world of India to like a mainstream audience, to like audiences around the world and everything. Um, I thought it was really cool that Dev Patel really did something like that, and added like a little bit more like I said, just a little more weight to this movie with its political messaging. Because yeah, it did the it did the typical like oh yeah, the poor and like nationalists and like corruption in the police force and everything. It's like, look, I've been seeing that in a lot of movies, and it's like, not that I don't enjoy seeing that, but it's just like with this, I was like, okay, it's touching the surface of these things. It's doing it well, but it's just touching the surface. The trans part of this movie did not see that coming, and I was like, I'll give that more credit, because it's like that was actually something I don't think I can think of a single action movie that really delved into something like that and brought like light and shine light on something like that. I was like, that was actually
the
cool.
the Hijra or
Yeah,
community. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but still, that was really cool. And I think I'll settle on this, which is that I'm glad they didn't go more into it, because that's not what this movie was
yeah,
going
exactly.
100% going for. It is Dev Patel's like it's this character getting back at this directly for the murder of his mother and what he
Yeah,
did to his childhood. But just the fact that is part of this film, I think, is really cool. I guess you could go into a deeper critique of like, well, it's problematic because it promotes this idea that just one person can fucking literally John Wick this. And it's like, no, it takes a community, it takes
yeah,
bottom up whatever.
Even my contrarian ass didn't go that far.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
YouTube leftists, you can go suck it. SAS, I should say, SES. Uh, but whatever. The point is that they got some exposure here. They got to have some moment in the sun, and I thought that was just something that was really cool.
It's also mimicking the story of the monkey god and everything. It's mimicking that
Hmm.
same story where they uprose against everything. It's just doing that with its main story with Dev Patel's character. It's not actually
Yeah,
saying, no, we need to go on the streets and do this stuff. No, 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 not at all.
and it also gives perspective to. Last thing I'll say here is that here in America, uh, although increasingly going back the other way. But here in America, it's not too revelatory to have like a gay movie or like a movie with gay characters, right?
Yeah,
It's not like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, where that was a big scandal back in the 60s or whatever. Now here in America, it's thankfully this is good that it's more blasé.
yeah.
But in India, nah, maybe not so much. And the fact that Patel was able to yeah, as Steve mentioned, straight up indirectly but pretty directly attack the prime minister with the message here, and go for a very downtrodden community is really cool. Like that does take balls. That's taken, planning your flight culturally where it actually really does matter is really cool. Anyway, I'll get off my freaking soapbox. And I think we'll go into
Final
into
ratings. Yeah.
final ratings here. I believe that's what Steve was going to go to. Joe, do you want to kick it off here?
Yeah, sure. It's like I said, I had a lot of fun with this movie in terms of its action. I know, like Dom, you have like you were asking me like would you say like it's fun overall? No, I mean like there's a very serious message here and everything, but the movie does have fun with itself at times. Like we brought up sequences of like he tries jumping out the window and it bounces back. There's other parts too where like his little like companion friend that like he spends like the first act with. Like that guy was making me chuckle throughout the movie, especially calling his
He
like
kind of
little
disappears though. I think
he does, yeah. Again, like that would have been
the
a great
last
character
third.
to keep around because like he at least was a lot of fun to be around. He was making me laugh, like calling his little like buggy thing Minaj and everything.
That was good.
Like it's the one thing that, and I hate bringing up the other movies, but it's the even though Keanu Reeves can't act in those movies, the John Wick movies are at least populated with actors
Sure.
who play really interesting characters. You have Lance Riddick, and you have Bill Skarsgård in the latest one, who I thought was the best villain of the series. That really gave it like some cool weight. Those movies are populated where it's like, hey, look, the main character, like he is just kind of a like narrative device, just to push the plot forward and have cool action sequences. But everything else surrounding him is so cool. And with Monkey Man, it kind of feels like the opposite. It's like the main character is really interesting and everything. Actually, no, it's not really the opposite because like the stuff around him is interesting. It's just they don't explore it enough. So that's the thing with it. It's just that there's more to explore here. But like it feels like Dev Patel tried to cover too much at once. That like he leaves a lot of stones unturned. I guess I'm going all over the place with this fucking review too. Again, I just honestly this was the review. I was like as much fun as I had with it, and I really enjoyed it. I was recommending it to people. It's like I just don't know how to really word these kind of reviews when it comes to action movies like this. As much fun as I have with them, it's really hard to like word around, especially because like I didn't want to give away too much about like the story and everything. I was kind of letting you guys take lead on that because it's like I don't really know how much I want to give away. For me, it's 3 out of 4 stars. A very enthusiastic 3 out of 4 stars. I can't wait to see what Patel does next in terms of directing. I am looking forward to him teaming up with Peele though for his next movie because I believe that is confirmed now that he will be starring in that. So I'm glad to see that.
Hell yeah.
Final star rating for me is 2 out of 4 stars. Dom, did you give yours?
I have not given my, but did you want to? Or I don't. Yeah.
I think we kind of summarized closing thoughts there, each individually on our own there, without having to be prompted. So that's why I just gave mine right there.
Yeah. No, I mean, uh, it's almost too predictable that if I fell into 2.5 stars, this is 2.75 stars for me.
Ah, that's
honestly.
bullshit. We do halves. We do halves.
3.
This ain't
It's 3.
IMDb. Saying IMDb. I was just gonna say round up.
All right. No, I'll round up. I'll give it 3
good.
just because what it did was like, hey, is a little more substance to what you did with highlighting the Hijra, God damn it, Hijra community. Because how this goes, I feel like what this story really wanted to do was go like be a cannonball, just straightforward, go for it, go like the raid. But it gets a little herky jerky to it. So but as a debut, it really impressed me.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3 out of 4 stars.
That's another
for
reason
Monkey
why
Man.
I gave it 3 too, because it's like, man, for a debut, this is a strong debut. Like I was very impressed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping we get something more.
Yeah.
I really am. I think Dev Patel does have a lot of prowess as a director, and I do think he has a directorial future. And I mean, who knows? It could maybe even be, as we've seen with the relationship building so far, could maybe even be, under the Jordan Peele umbrella with Monkey Paw.
Yeah. I even want to say too, this past weekend we had 2 strong debuts from first-time directors. I'm gonna mispronounce her name, but Arkasha Stevenson, I think is how you pronounce it, but she directed The First Omen, which just came out this weekend. I went into that movie kind of expecting like, all right, it's probably gonna be like immaculate, just like a serviceable like nun horror movie. No, that movie's actually surprised. That movie's got a lot to it, more than I expected. I don't know if any of you guys, Dom, I know you're not into horror though, but I don't know if any of you guys saw it over the weekend. I
wrote it
liked
off. I wrote it off because I did not want to sit through another Omen movie, but
Yeah.
that has me more curious now.
It,
That does
it's
I was surprised it didn't do better at the box office, frankly, but I saw it got halfway decent reviews.
Yeah, I was genuinely like, wow, this was actually solid, and I want to see what this director does next time.
I was really underwhelmed by Immaculate too.
I was too.
Very much underwhelmed by Immaculate. We will segue into this. Not going to take us super long, but do want to touch on this though. Maxine trailer dropped, and I don't like reacting to trailers too much, but I do like when they're noteworthy. And I feel like A24 trailers in themselves, at least for film nerds like us, are an event, even when somebody like me criticizes them and lambastes them over their release strategy for the zone of interest. Hey, and I fucking won, too. Did you see it's on HBO Max now?
Oh, it is?
It's
Oh,
on
shit.
Max as of like a week and a half ago. Catherine
shit.
pulled up Max. We were going to watch something. It wasn't quite on set. It was a few days ago, but she was like, hey, Zone of Interest is on Max. I'm like, they fucking listen to me. I wrote like 2.5 paragraphs in my review about that. They listen to me, dicks. But anyway,
Zaslav was like, you know what? Steve's right.
finally, I get some respect around here. But the trailer for Maxine dropped. That's Maxine with 3 capital X's. And it is the new movie from Ty West. It is the third in the X trilogy, as it's known. It is a movie that takes place after the events of X. And
Maxine,
it's,
The Last Stand. Sorry, sorry, that was
and
ruminating
it's
in
the
my head.
second movie removed from Pearl, too. So the trilogy is going to be chronologically Pearl X Maxine. So this movie takes place after the events of X, after Maxine Minx survived the massacre that took place in X. She goes to pursue her dream of being an actress in 1985 Los Angeles. Trailer dropped a little over 2 minutes. Got a great cast of characters in this movie. Cannot wait. Elizabeth Debicki, who plays the director of The Puritan 2, which is a movie that Maxine's going to star in.
She looks like Greta Gerwig in this trailer, by the way.
She really kind of does. She kind of does. You've got the singer-songwriter Moses Sumney is in this. You also have pop singer Halsey.
Yep.
Who, I'll be honest, is like one of the handful of artists I play on a daily basis that I do like on my radio station.
I like Halsey a lot too.
I enjoy
her
Halsey's
last
music.
2 albums I really enjoyed. Her first few ones I was like, but her last 2 recently I really enjoyed.
It was kind of like, if you can win me over with like your first big single, I'll probably pay attention to you for at least an album or two.
Yeah.
That's like Ava Max with Sweet But Psycho, and it was like Halsey for Without Me. I was like, if you can get me to pay attention after the first single, I'll probably keep listening to you, at least for an album. I'll give you one. Michelle Monaghan's in it. Bobby Cannavale's in it. Lily Collins is in it. Kevin Bacon's also in it too. So it's probably the most stacked cast of all 3 of these movies.
Yeah.
Very excited. Love the look of this movie. It's like equal parts 80s Hollywood, and it's like equal parts like
80s
like
slasher.
80s slasher, yes.
Yeah.
And it's got like I know it's kind of like outside of this, but almost like the golden age of porn look to it too. It's a little bit outside the timeline of that era. But the other thing that they bring into this movie too, that I think is going to be really fascinating to see how they do this, is the Night Stalker. Is the Night Stalker killer Richard Ramirez, or as some people believe, was multiple people. Catherine brought up a good question before we went on air today too. Is one of the Night Stalkers Maxine? That's an interesting.
I'm hoping it's one of those. I thought about that. I thought about one of those
Hold
twists.
on. I'm gonna sound so stupid. This is actually like a real serial killer?
Yes.
Yes.
I did not know that. That's actually
Night
really
Stalker
cool.
is a yeah.
Richard Ramirez.
Okay.
He was a
alright.
I don't
serial-
like talking about serial killers because
I-
it just turns into like filleting them.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he is a big one. Yeah.
I was like already like very hyped for this movie. Hearing that is like, that's really cool that they took like a real life thing and are applying it to like the world of like the X trilogy.
It's
It's almost like Tarantino-esque,
Yeah.
right?
That
How-
was
how
just
he
yeah,
does that.
you stole the words out of my mouth
Yeah.
because it feels like Once Upon a Time in
yeah.
Hollywood. It feels like
or
Once
even
Upon-
Inglourious Bastards.
where that movie, where Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like once you figured out, like the thing is, you can never rewatch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood the same way you watched it the first time, because the whole time, if you know the story of Sharon Tate, you're just waiting for the inevitable. Like there's a part of me that was almost like my heart was sinking at the late as long as the movie went, because it's just like, when's it gonna come? Like what's gonna happen. And then it just flips the fucking script immediately, and it becomes this rousing, like laudable, like applauding climax of that movie and how it revises history in such a beautiful way. Uh, and lifts up Rick Dalton, the lead in that movie. Where this movie has that same thing, but it's almost like a story within like the larger story of the Night Stalker, the like this like smaller story of Maxine and her attempt to make it in Hollywood. So I think there's a lot here that's going to be really fascinating to see unfold too. And like you said, Joe, it's got this like 80s Hollywood aesthetic and the 80s slasher aesthetic, and I think it, at least from the trailer, I think it merges them perfectly.
It was a popular time for those 80s slashers and those VHS home video slasher rentals and everything, and they play with that throughout the trailer too. Like she's in a VHS store throughout the trailer and everything, and just the look of this movie, man. Like I wasn't crazy about the look. Like X was a good looking film, but it was like mostly shot at night and everything. Dude, I love the Technicolor look of Pearl. Like that's what made me, because I know with us, I think Dom and I liked Pearl more than X, and then Steve, you were the opposite way around. I think honestly, this next one though is gonna be like the best of both worlds in terms of like we're gonna. I agree. I think Dom and I are gonna love it for the visuals because we love the Technicolor look of Pearl, and he might do the same thing, but like with that retrograde '80s look in Maxine, and then just have the slasher stuff that was really good in X, but be done now in this movie.
I've long been over the 80s thing, but when there are exceptions abound, when it's done very well, I appreciate it. So I'm very hyped for this.
When there's a concept attached,
exactly, it's not just cheap, and it's not you're just doing it cheaply.
It also feels earned here. Sorry, Dom. It also feels earned here because he did the 70s so good in X.
Yes, he did.
He did the
70s
so
and then
good.
the 10s. Yeah.
Was it 20s or 40s in Pearl?
I think it was 10s because it was during World War I.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
1918.
It's unique. Yeah, thank you. It's unique because hardly any movies explore that on the home front. I'm sure a few of them have, but at least not in the big mainstream kind of sense. It's not a very popular setting. It's like very I would even say Wizard of Oz is, because that's already 30, so that's already kind of past it. But
you're close.
Still, it has that vibe. I mean, yeah, right. It's rural America. How unique can you get in 20 years?
Yeah.
But still, it was. You're right. I did very much enjoy Pearl more, just holistically.
Yeah.
As much as I did appreciate X, I didn't hate it by any means. But yeah, I am low key hype for Maxine.
Same.
And
it being a summer release too has me more excited too.
Like I recently. Not recently, I don't know. I kind of want to watch Glow again, that Netflix miniseries, which got cut off on its 3rd season. They're going to go back to LA for its 4th. And I like that. Not completely different vibe in terms of the actual story, but the 80s feel. I was like, you know what? I do fuck with this because it's hitting because it has a good cast of characters and all that stuff. So yeah, Maxine, I'm looking forward to it. And just mentioning what we were talking about earlier, I could go for another like Quentin Tarantino rewrites history movie. I could go for one more of that as his last. I don't think it will be, but I could mess with that because because Inglourious is my guilty pleasure of my favorite. I know it shouldn't top anyone's list, but for me it does.
Dude,
of Tarantino movies.
I'm right there with you. Like Inglourious Basterds is like top 2 for me. I love that movie.
Yeah, man.
The last thing I'll bring up about Maxine, though, that's interesting is that Ty West has said that he has a couple ideas for future movies in this series, including a 4th one that he basically has kind of conceptualized.
I'm down.
It's going to depend, however, on how well this one does. Okay. He said in so many words that A24 basically gave him these 3 movies because they only cost, I want to say, about $1 million a piece. So he gave him these 3 movies, and they've all made money. Not much, but they've all made their, plenty of money back. It helps that they're so cheap, but they're also pretty niche. So I'm interested to see if people turn out for this. Over under, should we take bets right now? Is Letterboxd, the week this movie comes out over 4th of July, is Letterboxd going to rebrand as Letterboxd with 3 X's?
Oh,
what? Oh.
That's pretty good, honestly. Because they do it.
Because they do that with their logo. They sometimes rebrand their site to go after what movies are out.
I don't think so. Because like they do it for like the real like film buff like nerd like movies that they're hyped for. Like they did it for what's it called? Everything Everywhere All at Once, and then they did it for one other movie that was just like similar to that, where it's like it had everybody buzzing around for like I think it was Oppenheimer. Like they only did it for like those two movies.
That makes sense.
Because what he's referencing, I'm trying to remember the Oppenheimer one, but for Everything Everywhere, what they did was normally when you watch a movie, it turns into an icon of a green eyeball. For Everything Everywhere, it was a googly eye.
Yeah. Oppenheimer was like after you submitted the review, it did something to your review.
Catherine just reminded me with Oppenheimer on Letterboxd, when you logged it, it exploded.
That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, you're right though. They do it for more event movies.
Yeah,
they do it for more event movies. I was just thinking they could change the logo.
That would be so hype if they did that. But you're right. I think it's not. It's more of a. It's a lesser movie. You know what I'm saying?
Call them out
on the cultural stage.
Call them out. If they're a movie app for movie nerds, you would do this for Ty West.
You really would, because the Letterboxd crowd. I'd like to see the portion of the box office receipts that have gone that were also Letterboxd users that paid for tickets. But yeah, you can expect the Maxine review the week after it drops on Sleepless with Steve.
I was gonna say too, like it getting a sequel afterwards. It all depends because I know A24 is kind of taking like more precautions now because for the longest time too, even I was saying this, like, man, I feel like they produce almost anything they want, and I'm like, I don't know if that's a good business model over time. And now they're kind of like, yeah, we need to get some more mainstream movies, and like Civil War is kind of like being that first one where it's like, kind of like a big action movie from A24. So I'm wondering like, what's it gonna have to cut for Maxine to make basically in order to have a fourth.
It's true. We will be reviewing Maxine though when the time comes, and then come for the time next week. You just mentioned what we're reviewing next week. It is Civil War. It is Alex Garland's latest film. I feel like Yeah, apparently. I feel like Men came out a lot sooner. Than it did, but it's already been 2 years since that movie came out. But what Joe is referencing is Alex Garland said that he might retire from directing. That was basically coded for, and he also added that later. He also said he doesn't have any projects at the moment. I think the guy's just burnt out. He went from Men to Civil War almost immediately when he made those, and that was between like the COVID 2-year gap between. It was a 4-year gap, I think, between Annihilation and Men. Yeah. So what I think he's probably more realistic for him is he's probably going to do a screenplay or two, and he's going to jump back into directing. He's far too young to hang it completely up. But Civil War is going to give us a ton to chew on next week. Yeah. We will be discussing that here next week on the show. Until then, great show. Love a little bit of dissent with a movie review too. And we did a very good job at that, as well as talking about the Maxine trailer, which is out now. That movie comes out on July 5th. Next week, we're tackling Civil War, and I'm doing it with these two gentlemen. We might have a civil war amongst us if we have some disagreements on that movie.
Watch that be the movie that we finally like align our star ratings on. It's the movie about a country dividing itself into like different quadrants.
I love it. The irony would be palpable. But until then, we will be back next week with a review of Civil War, hopefully a civil review. Until then, for Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.